Children of a Karen. What is it like? My mom is a reformed Karen. When I was a kid, she used to treat people in customer service like trash. When I was a teenager and in customer service positions, it finally dawned on her what a terrible human being she was being. She's turned around and been great ever since. I'm proud of her to recognize her faults and fix them. This makes me think of parents who are full on fire and brimstone against homosexuals until their kid comes out as gay and suddenly whoosh 180. I guess it's good that people change their views, but it's quite crazy how insular we are. Often as a species at least, until something directly affects us. My mother too. It's a shame it took having to see their own kid in that role for them to understand that people are just people doing their jobs. But the point is they did eventually learn and are better people. That's great to hear. How dare you come here with your uplifting story about a Karen. My mom is not a demanding Karen, but she would routinely go to the store. Like go through the doors at 5 minutes before closing. I don't think she ever worked in retail, so she didn't understand. Exact same thing happened here. Well, I make these for bacon. Did it require intervention? 0.0. My mom is somewhat of a Karen, mostly in regards to restaurants. And I have an anxiety disorder. It's a combination made in hell. The anxiety can be there because your mom's a Karen. It's a combination made all over the world. My dad is a Karen. Also in restaurants. Complains about every meal in an attempt to get a discount. Asks for them to send out another steak because his wasn't perfect. I just pretend I'm going to the toilet and apologize to the waiter or waitress. I tell them I empathize with them and I know it's frustrating. Luckily I'm older, and I don't go out for meals with him so much anymore. When I was young, I'd do chores for him and he'd complain the same way at me, like, you're not washing the dishes right, and other nonsense. His worst was when I swept the floor. I never got it exactly how he wanted it. He's a narcissist, most likely, as there are many more negative things he's done that scream narcissistic personality disorder. Same here, although mine does it at grocery stores too. Such fun. I learned to end argues by saying, you're right, prove it. Quote, I have an incredibly politically opinionated friend who does nothing but talk about politics, usually stirring shit up with controversial statements. The more you engage him, the more he talks about it. I found out recently the only way to shut him up is, you're right. Whoa, you're right. I really respect your ability to keep out ego and emotions, and if you are actually able to do that, I like to say, okay. Doesn't give them the satisfaction of winning, but also gives them nothing more to feed off of. Enabling. Brother, I learned that does not work on regular people. I know who every restaurant has fucked with our food. And for good reason. I'm in my 30s now. And I won't go out with my mom in public. She doesn't want to either. Because I'll give her shit for whatever she did to some poor teenaged cashier until she cries. Two can play this game and know. NTS. To this day, your food doesn't taste quite right unless someone spat in it. I respect you so much for not letting her get away with it and not letting her have that chip on her shoulder of accomplishment like she did something that had to be done. Thank you. Now I want to know what happened to the cashier. On behalf of all customer service workers, I thank you. Too many times have I had to deal with that aftermath because my trainee coworker encountered a Karen. It's exhausting. I can't do anything normal with her or even have a normal conversation. Sometimes I'd like to call and ask how my sister is. Instead I get a list of people who have wronged her in the last week. It's the most petty bullshit too. Oh, some child was running around at McDonald's today. If that was my child, I'd have warmed her bottom. I know, Mom. I was that child. Same with the entitlement. She'll give me a list of things that should have been done for her. It makes it so hard to even contact her because I have to mentally prepare myself for hours of ranting on the phone. If we ever go out together, like even to get lunch, I'm going to be embarrassed by her behavior. Not to mention she'll try to embarrass me somehow. My dad is a Karen, and one of the best things I've done for myself is give myself permission to politely hang up on him when he's been ranting for X amount of time. Started with 45 minutes. Now, I've got it down to like 20. At first I felt so rude and guilty, but it got easier with practice. When he takes a breath, I super fast say something like, "Hey, I've gotta let you go, but let's catch up another day. Okay, love you." I give him one chance to say goodbye. If he tries to start ranting again, I say loudly, "Hey, I'm gonna stop you there. I've gotta go. Love you. Bye," and hang up. I don't know if it would work on your mom, or if she's holding something over you, but I hope you get that feeling someday. Oh, some child was running around at McDonald's today. If that was my child, I'd have warmed her bottom. I know, Mom. I was that child. Phewick. That hits hard. I'm so sorry. Holy shit. You just described my mother. I don't think I realized until today that she is a Karen. Damn. My mom is kind of like that. I don't really call her or talk to her about anything because it's not worth the energy, because she won't listen. My wife asks me why I don't talk to her more, because when my mom complains about other things, there's nothing I can do to help in. Anything I say isn't worth the time. Kind of sad really, but I do good for myself. Why don't you just hang up? Sounds like a narcissist. My dad is a male Karen. I always hated listening to him call customer service on the phone, because he's such a complete asshole to whoever is just trying to do their job. My dad used to help obvious first-time food servers who messed up by lecturing them, telling on them to their boss, and then stiffing them on the tip. He always justified it with a story about how once in the 90s he actually had a boss thank him for doing it because his staff sucked. It was a very unique situation. I always felt so bad for the servers who were humiliated. Because of that, I always tip well as an adult. Out of this childhood guilt I carry, I have a script I use when I'm starting to get pissed off at customer service. It goes like this. Look, I'm really upset right now, but I'm not upset at you. I'm upset at your employer. It's not your fault that I'm angry, but this is a terrible way to treat a customer. Can you please help me? I find that far more effective. The person you're talking, it's seldom their fault. They're just doing a shitty call center job. On the other hand, if you treat them like a human being, they might be willing to do some extra work to help you. Lol. My mom is a Karen while being customer service. She's supposed to help customers, but when she's mildly upset, she will use this really ugly and condescending tone. I'm surprised they haven't fired her. I honestly think male Karens are worse, because they don't seem to understand how being loud and angry as a guy can be really frightening for some people. They're also more likely to actually get violent or start screaming. Doya mmol man t1mtae lane. Same. I think part of it is that my dad used to be a lawyer, so he has experience with being an ass. Equals 16H. Osa. Male Karen. I think the term is Chad. Does that make him a Darren? My sister is a Karen in recovery, and her teenage kids are mortified by her. They had a Karen intervention with her a few months ago, and pointed out that about 1 out of every 3 visits to a restaurant results in a meal or a drink sent back, and about 1 in 10 results in a conversation with the manager. Unresolved complaints over the phone practically have a pre-written script. This is unacceptable. Poor customer service, etc. She's trying to be more self-aware because she now recognizes that not only can her behavior be embarrassing, but she's a Karen caricature. If someone described the typical Karen by looks, age, race, tone of voice, social standing, they would be describing her to a T. Sure, it's Karen shaming, but we're living in a society here There's literally nothing wrong with Karen shaming. That last sentence. I'm glad they held an intervention. I'm so out of the loop. What does "we live in a society" mean specifically, and where did it comes from? What gets me is in my whole life I've sent food back maybe 3 times in restaurants. Once because the bacon on a burger was raw. Once because I felt a pile of greasy noodles with basically no sauce or cheese did not constitute a lasagna. And I'm sure there might be a third that's just not coming to me at the moment. So I am complaining at a restaurant maybe once a decade. Maybe only every other decade. Meanwhile, the Karens of the world will complain for no reason. Frankly, it's embarrassing. You have to sit there while they shriek at a manager and cause a big scene. If you try to chime in, you get yelled at. Then they're in a bad mood the rest of the day. I've sat through hour-long debates with managers over 11 cents disparity on a bill. Everyone is looking at you and you are just kind of trapped there. I once had a customer storm into a store with her daughter in tow, pissed off at me because I processed their purchase as Amex, which had a 2% surcharge. I told them about the surcharge, and they said, okay, and switched the card out when I wasn't looking. It was a Visa. So 20 minutes later, this woman storms back into the store, shoves the receipt under my nose, and snarls, "Explain this." I had to ask my manager how to refund an ADC surcharge because what else was I gonna do? Stand there and get yelled at? A customer comes up with a problem. It's my job to fix it, as politely and compassionately as I can pretend to. It turned into a whole thing. I was fucking around with the boss trying to figure out how to refund surcharges. Couldn't. So I had to get my manager. So now the customer is standing there, watching, as I explain that she wants an ADC surcharge refunded. And you can see it dawn on her what exactly she's done. It takes half an hour for my manager to figure out a makeshift solution, over the course of which the customer's face went from "fuck you" to "I have made a TAE. Malu." By the time it was resolved, both mother and daughter looked like they wanted to crawl under a rock and die, and the mother kept on muttering, "It's the principle of the thing." And restaurants are hell, especially if your Karen thinks she knows how to make that dish. Pretty sure I've eaten spit from half my state at this point. I came here to post the exact same thing. Restaurants, stores especially, or anywhere else we went, there were long, loud debates with managers. Everyone is looking and you're trapped. Thankfully, as I got older, I would retreat to the car. It is humiliating. Not my mom, but my grandmother. It's really terrible, and it fucks with your perception of reality. There is a very obvious hierarchy in her mind, which she never veers away from. So whoever in a discussion is higher in the hierarchy is automatically right. It usually goes herself, her children, well-respected people in her local community, plus television personalities she likes like Dr. Phil, her other grandchildren, me and my brother, everybody else. For example, when me and my cousins would fight, she would always side with them. But any time I got a bad grade, she would insult my teacher and say that they were probably stupid for not seeing how smart I am. It was very confusing and really messed with my self-esteem. Karens are typically narcissists who can't handle being challenged on their beliefs. And the only way they can bring people up is by tearing other people down. I recently moved far away from home and haven't seen much of her, and I feel like I'm much more stable now. Why are you and your brother lower on the totem pole than her other grandkids? Is it because you call her out? When I was a child, everything was someone else's fault. We'd speak to managers in stores, restaurants, etc. When I came of age, I joined the military and moved away as fast as possible. As an adult, my relationship with her was terrible. I was so frustrated by her asking me to come back to visit her area every time we talked that I just stopped talking to her. Something particularly interesting had happened this past year. I went home to see my grandma on Dad's side as she was passing. I called my mom and told her I was taking an emergency trip and would be in the area but wouldn't have time to see her. Her response? "That's fine. I understand. Your family needs you." I was beside myself. I had known that she was working on herself for a while, but living so far away and speaking so little, I hadn't witnessed it. 5 years ago, she would have demanded that I leave my dying grandma to come see her. I came back to the area the next month and we discussed it more. She said that she realized that a lot of problems in her life and a lot of the unhappiness stems from selfishness. I am incredibly proud of the changes she's made in her life, and it has forced me to reevaluate my own actions pertaining to our strained relationship and my life as a whole. And I've come to a conclusion. I'm just like her. You are very brave to take such a candid look at yourself and your mother. And if you are that courageous, you are not like your mother. I'm just like her. I relate to this on a spiritual level. My mother has the same issues with her mother that I have with her. And I know if I have kids, I'm just going to repeat the cycle. So I refuse to have children just in case I'm never able to exorcise that demon. Value Ella. Quite frankly, both our families flat out ignore her. She has no relationship with her kids. We didn't realize how much it impacted our lives until we grew up and saw that kind of behavior just makes everyone hate you. The only people that put up with her is Karen's husband and my mom, her sister. Even then the marriage is basically done. The number of times I heard "the squeaky wheel gets the grease" just makes me cringe to look back on. She was so proud of it every time too. Then I grew up and got a service job and it immediately sunk in. The squeaky wheel gets replaced. The bare fucking minimum to just get them to shut up and get out the door. And you remembered from that point on as a problem. So in the end, everyone hates her, including her own children. Edit. It should be noted that she's not actually blood related to my mom. They're just that close. My grandma just took her in as a teenager. They're sisters, as much as it can be, and we've always called her aunt, and her kids are our cousins. It's just how most of our extended family is, which, in a way, makes her and my mom's relationship kind of worse, I guess. I worked a student job at Disneyland Paris. Great job. Most of the customers were great as well, but Karen's. As a beginner, I really thought they were getting bonuses because a bit of drama could get them a teddy bear, backdoors for an attraction, etc. But in fact, at the end, first they would get it once. Second, they stayed 2h at front desk to get it. Karens calculate everything, but most of them are bad at math. I knew a girl who was chronically rude to sales clerks. I asked her why and she said, "They're all just trying to rip you off." I didn't have the stomach to ask how. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The squeaky wheel does get the grease because the squeaky wheel wasn't functioning properly, Karen. The number of times I heard "the squeaky wheel gets the grease." My response to this trope is always, however, if the wheel continues to squeak, I will simply replace it. Edit. After posting, I notice Op said pretty much the same thing. I am so happy that someone else feels the same way. When my siblings and I were younger, she was great, but she's become more insufferable as she's gotten older. She has two voices, a talking to us voice and a talking to other people voice. Her other people voice is very serial killer-like. She tells us not to shop at certain stores or stay at certain types of hotels when we travel because they are ghetto. She is never ever wrong for anything. Even when I tear an argument of hers to shreds, she makes me apologize. I've never received an apology from her in my life, even when she's screamed in my face for absolutely no reason. She's not exactly the "let me speak to your manager" type, but she will leave places crappy reviews. on Google or Facebook if she doesn't like the service. Speaking of which, she is the queen of Facebook. The first couple months of the pandemic she wouldn't stop posting about how we all need to go back to living. Now that the protests have started, she's been ranting about how she didn't sit in the house for 2 months for it to be ruined by protesters. I've had to learn to just ignore it and be thankful I don't live with her anymore. It may also be worth mentioning my mom is a second-generation Karen. My grandma is the literal, textbook definition of Karen. She's almost 80 years old and still can't go to restaurants with her, because I never know what she's going to say or do. My generation's Karen seems to be my EUALACE and or TBETN me cuss, to immediately put me out of my misery. Your fiancé is brilliant. Me and my ex had a code word for when I started to act like my mother, who isn't a Karen but not somebody I want to turn into. The code word was only used once early on in our relationship, so I'd say it's going okay so far. The fiancé is the real martyr here. My mom is a Karen to service people sometimes. She can range from mildly rude to a total monster at times. I used to make excuses, like one time when she worked as a realtor and in the middle of buying something retail, stepped away a bit to take a phone call. The lady had this obvious "are you kidding?" that couldn't wait another minute to finish this kinda expression. I tried to smooth it over like, "Oh sorry, she's at work always even when she's not at work" kinda thing. Lady responded, "It's still rude," and TBH that was the first moment I realized, yeah, my mom is rude. Now if she's unreasonable I straight up tell her off. Usually ends in the two of us fighting and me apologizing to whoever just got yelled at. The worst was after my grandma died. She took her feelings out on everyone, after her being rude to a waitress for no reason. My brother told me to ease up since she just lost her mom. I replied, "Every one of us here just lost a person we love, but they gives her no right to treat others like crap, especially for no reason." Yup, grief is excuse to act like that. Maybe the poison she yelling at also lost someone. I have no idea who is worse between my father, my mother, my oldest sister and my older sister. Dad will belittle anyone who crosses him, demanding to speak to managers, threatening litigation, calls to authorities, etc. He is always concerned that somebody is out to get him and is extremely cautious of scammers, door-to-door solicitors or people calling her in for a treat if they're sorry enough to get him. Customer representatives over the phone have no idea how to manage him. He is surprisingly very nice when things are going smooth though. Mom is a textbook restaurant Karen. She is fortunately nice about it, but will request changes, comments on everything, etc. But she is impossible to please. I get it when I do anything for her. Oldest sister has my dad's temper and my mom's demands, without either of their niceness. Plus, she is well married so she is insanely entitled. Older sister is just temper, will just yell at people. They are my family and I love them, but I hate it when I see any of their awful ways in me. Hopefully Karen shaming will get them soon and they understand the wrong of their ways. Probably your oldest sister a Mao. That's an interesting family dynamic though. None of them are perfect, but all of them have their redeeming traits. My parents are lovely people on the whole, but they are unbelievably entitled when they go to restaurants. I spoke up about it every time and they'd brush it off. Such behaviors include, when there is a clear wait to be seated situation, they'll just walk in and sit down at any table. CT meals T0. They will get multiple drinks, beer, soda, water with lemon, coffee. Really anything refillable. Tip poorly. ECHA 10 stone. Oh my team. OLRMT. CMM con cruel RNCE. 1. The history of the building. I stopped going to restaurants with him a couple years ago. Even a free meal isn't worth a Levy TRL. Oh my god. We had some people sit down at a table that was empty at a restaurant I was hostess at as a teen, because they wanted a good view of the beach. Our restaurant had upstairs and downstairs seating. There was about a 30-minute wait for a new table to empty up. Enter early 30-something Karen and her boyfriend. They're waiting for seating. The thing was, we had a family that had come in earlier with a disabled son in one of those big motorized wheelchairs who requested downstairs seating and were willing to wait for it. We have 2 tables open up, one upstairs and one downstairs. I lead Karen and her boyfriend up the stairs, and I can already tell she's making a face. Once we get to their table, she looks around. The view isn't as stellar, but you can see the water, wrinkles her nose, and sits down. I ask if everything is okay. She says it's fine. So I walk away. So the other host calls the family with a son in the wheelchair to tell them their table is ready. Restaurant was on a strip of beachy fun stores, so leaving to go look at other things isn't unheard. Cohen born 11s Mercia NRUC Re. Look at the table downstairs, and fucking Karen and her man are there. Not upstairs where I sat. Them. I turn to the other host who was more senior than me and tell him what's up. He goes over there and tells her she needs to move back upstairs where we sat them and that another family has priority. She immediately throws a fit, pointing in his face and saying he's ruining her vacation, how she's never been treated so rudely in her life, blah blah blah, starting to get kind of loud. So other people waiting start staring. He goes to the manager, a sweet grandma lady who I loved, and she explains to her why she needs to go upstairs. Karen's BF is standing up at this point and apologizing, but Karen is mad and isn't budging an inch. Now for her it's like the principle of the matter or something. So the manager, who didn't quite fully understand about the disabled boy's family, says to drop it and let her sit there. Karen is huffy but orders drinks and appetizers, and the manager brings them their drinks. Herself apologizing. Cue the poor kid's family coming into the restaurant sweaty and hot. Only for us and the manager to have to explain what happened and how they'll get the next table for sure. I glare over at Karen, who is staring over at the mom and dad and the kids with the little brother in this huge wheelchair together. Her eyes are huge as she's sipping her drink. She whispers over at her boyfriend and laughs. She was probably saying, oh shit, they weren't kidding. Maybe I should have let them have this seat. But she just got her meal and ate and tried to avoid eye contact with us or the family while smirking the whole time. Maybe even get actors to look like the people getting ranked. It'll either be funny or result in some kind of self-realization. Multiple drinks isn't bad, but tip. It's fine to get many refills and joke with the waiter and everything, but tip well at the end. What's wrong with refills? I have many patients who are children and their Karen mothers are probably the worst part of my job. I feel bad for the kids and husband the most, to be honest. My mom is like 10% Karen, 70% when she is hungry or upset. It's really embarrassing. Just deal with the mother as calmly as you can and give the kids some candy or something. It's utterly humiliating, especially when people are staring. By that point the husband is neutered. I'm saying this as the friend of a guy who is currently engaged to this type of woman. She won't let him hang out with his friends and will call him constantly, badgering him and treating him like dirt. And he'll just curl up into a ball and consent to whatever she tells him. I think their relationship started as a pseudo-toxic one where they were both pretty stubborn with each other. A red flag that he refused to acknowledge. But she ultimately won and he gave up trying to argue. He's just a shell now. Why I quit doing weddings when I was a florist. I didn't get a lot of bridezillas, but Their moms. Who boy? My mother's name is Karen, but she is the opposite of the stereotypical Karen. She's awesome. Patton Elam. A.G.L. Allen. She should print out business cards that say Karen, but not that kind of Karen. Quote, I always think about how nice my mom is. Sometimes she's too nice. I probably could have used more consistent discipline when younger. The biggest complaint is she tries to help too much. And I can't even get something out of the fridge without her being right there, sort of butting in to help or ask what I need, which takes far longer than me just doing my own thing. I feel bad asking to just be left alone to tie my own shoes, etc., because she'd basically still try to help do. El to tell you esto, la. 0 telephone ren. I have a friend named Karen and same thing. She's the only person in her family born in the U.S. Com alam oi 1 lol mel comet EEMPE 1 equals LMET lo TOLOA ray. Youngest has an American name. It's an odd phenomenon. My mom really was named Karen. She was the most awesome person on the planet. Miss you, Mom. Seems to be a trend of women who are actually named Karen are the complete opposite of the stereotype. Lol. Terrible. I don't even want to talk about it. Would you be willing to talk about it to the manager? Jiggly Jam Jam 32.6 hours ago, edited 3 hours ago. You have to realize no matter how many times you tell them their behavior is wrong or that they're just wrong in general, it will get you nowhere. I cannot tell you how many times my mom has said some ridiculous shit, and if you say anything other than, yeah, I agree, she plays the victim card. Lots of nodding along and desperately searching for an opportunity to make a joke that lightens the mood or changes the subject. Very rarely am I asked outright for my thoughts, and when I am, I make an absurd joke to make it clear I have no interest in discussing it. She asked me how I voted once, so I said I was confused by the ballot, so I just checked everything off. That's what I was supposed to do, right? Quote, I also don't make a lot of eye contact during those topics. And especially if I'm not the only one there, I kind of distance myself a little. Engaged with my nieces or the dog or something until I hear the topic has changed. My mom was slowly treading down the path to Karenhood. I would just hang my head and be embarrassed, but I didn't really know why it was so wrong. Well, a few years in retail fixed that right the fuck up. So when that shit started up again, I calmly explained that she's getting pissy at the wrong person and has to follow the same rules everyone else does. She shouldn't expect special treatment just because she's angry. Fortunately, she took the road less traveled and made an effort to be more understanding and calm. It was awful. I cut her out of my life a long time ago. My grandma is banned from most stores in 3 counties. Before my hometown turned into a regular suburb, it was a semi-rural small town. In those times I could bring up her name and strangers would cringe. She wasn't a regular Karen though. She's an unapologetic white supremacist, so I don't blame them. We haven't spoken with her in a decade or so. Horrible since I am gay and I was almost kicked out since I am an abomination. LOAUPMLNLESLVM. It was humiliating. My mother treated everyone in the service industry as if they were idiot peasants placed there to serve her exclusively. However, she usually never brought her children out in public, so I was spared the majority of her behavior. She has always looked shockingly young for her age, and it always seemed like she had kids really young. So that was a part of it. The other part was that she hated how I looked. We're an Asian family and I was always overweight, a complete taboo for women. She would comment about my appearance to every single stranger she could. Doctors, Target employees, other kids, etc. Whenever she was forced to buy me clothing, she would comment to every worker how nothing looked good on me because I was ugly and fat. Then she would proceed to insult the workers. I always felt so ashamed by both actions that I could never look anyone in the eye. I could feel their pity radiating out, and it was humiliating. I didn't want anyone to feel bad for me. I didn't want their damn sympathy. I didn't want to be a major point of ridicule. It has led to a lifetime of having too much pride. It's hard to laugh at myself now, and I take myself way too seriously. I struggle to act less serious, but I spent so much time being laughed at. I can't take it, and I hate it when anyone talks shit about anyone, even if they deserve it. I have openly refused to trash talk a non-public figure for a long time. It's always toxic, especially if you wouldn't say it to their face. My mother would also use her first language to openly insult people all the time. She bled entitlement. It was horrific. I am constantly wondering if the next white woman to go viral for calling the police on an unsuspecting black person will be my mother. If I'm in a store or restaurant and I witness a Karening, is there anything I can do to help? Seems like any intervention would only raise her Kareness. Although I don't mind taking some heat off the poor worker. Any ideas? Real or hilarious? Registered. Tell her that her behavior is ruining your dining, shopping, whatever experience, and demand to Fool. Owl 1. I wondered this. I was in CVS yesterday, and this woman who has been clearly told twice to her face that they cannot take returns from a certain period was making a fuss. I wanted to tell her off, but my anxiety wouldn't let me. Next time, greater than sad face. My mom will always exaggerate everything. She's got to keep up with her friends while they complain about how their kids are doing drugs, shoplifting, sneaking out. My mom talks about how I said the word crap and makes it seem like I cussed out an adult right before murdering them. I'm almost an adult and I'm not allowed to swear. And yes, the child swear words count too. Any word that can be used as an insult counts. I'm almost 50 and still give my mom shit for not letting me say the word sucks. One time she said, "Do you let your kids say that?" So I replied, "Yes. I focus on the things that matter, not unimportant details that are about being overly controlling." She doesn't try to argue much with me anymore. I did the same thing to my dad, sticking expertly placed banderillas into him every time he opened his stupid mouth, and I enjoyed every moment of it. My dad is a Karen. KFC once forgot to put barbecue sauce in our order, and he spent a full half-hour writing an angry email. Next time I went in with him to get KFC, he had a printout to scan for store credit. He also enjoys yelling at CS reps on the phone, especially when they're in a foreign call center. To be fair to him, he yells on the phone even when he's being happy. I can hear him from outside the house. But even if it's not malicious, there's no way it doesn't come across that way on the other end. My sister's is a Karen. So entitled and self-obsessed. She's never not sent a meal back at a restaurant. I figure she's eaten a lot of spit. Infuriating. Both my mom and dad are awful to shop assistants. Despite the fact that I worked in the sector for 20 years. Neither of my parents read shelf signage properly. But if there's a price discrepancy, it's always a fault of the cashier, and they're very fond of the "you're not doing your job properly" quote argument. Even if it's a penny difference, they'll kick off. I've seen my mom reduce people to tears before. Mom also uses her disability to her advantage and will scream for the manager. Throw the "it's because I'm disabled" card around, and will then be nice as anything when the manager appears. They both shoplift too and see nothing wrong with it. I'm more than happy to help my parents with their shopping, but I have to walk away once they go to pay because it's so exhausting. My mom was actually named Karen. Her hair is the cut of actual meme Karen. Living with her was hell. She is no longer in my life. I have so many crazy horror stories I doubt many would believe me. She was a radiologist, so she has fuck you money to top it all off. It was awful. So bad my sister and I convenienced my very Catholic father to divorce her. He was an attorney and she managed to get her doctor pals to label her disabled, so my father, whom earned much less than her, had to pay her $270,000 for the privilege. The final straw for me was she only paid any attention to my daughter. When we had my son, she wanted nothing to do with him. Damn, that's depressing as hell. My sister's Mill has another sister who is a Karen. She proves the stereotype beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have no idea how she hasn't had a stress-induced heart attack from that woman yet. My mom's name is Karen. She hates it. I'm scared to ask her opinion on the memes. Fucking terrible. She would yell at any person trying to help her if they said anything she just didn't like or agree with. Not only do I have anxiety from all that horse shit, but I also now go out of my way to be nice to anyone providing me a service as much as I can. I also make it my mission to make them laugh so they can be comfortable. My husband and I like to trade stories of when we can get people to smile or laugh. One time that sticks with me is when my couch was being delivered by Macy's. I was just in the living room doing my usual shit of saying funny things and just being my weird self, trying to make the two guys comfortable in my home. One of the guys stopped as he was cleaning up all the plastic that the couch was wrapped in and said to me, "Thank you for being so nice. Most people don't even look at us." I was floored. Not for the compliment, but that people would treat another human being that way. Just terrible. Also, shout out to my dad for always teaching me to be kind. My husband and I once took him out to Outback Steakhouse for his birthday, and when the waiter came to take our order, my dad insisted he sit down in the booth next to him because he didn't think he should have to stand to wait on us. I know that's where I get my kookiness from, but I love it. Being kind takes no effort. Been unvaccinated for a year. New Record. AL. Migball 101 3 points 2 hours ago, edited 1 hour ago. I have two older brothers. One is a male Karen. His name is Raphael. He's my father figure. As much as I respect him for working hard and teaching me how to focus on myself in my life journey, the only thing I despise about him is his hothead tendencies. It's like who the fuck wants to be associated with somebody like that? Oh, at Ola Erla. EL min me. UAL memoma equals LAMTC. POIELLL COCL. Picture that included my mom, my other older brother and other older sister. My sister was taking multiple pictures and my brother Raphael wanted it to be over with. When she said hold on, she wanted to take more pictures. He just had a hothead moment saying, "We already took multiple pictures. I'm done. Why do you need to take more?" After that, he literally destroyed the whole mood. His lack of self-control is the reason why he lost his job as an officer in TBF. I'm glad he did. Everyone here needs to go to. I don't have any social skills because I learned being quiet gets people to leave you alone. 10E. My mom isn't really a full-on Karen, but if she is very hungry she gets hangry to a new level. She'll get pissed cause she can't decide what to order, then take it out on the waiters. They get a pissy attitude from my mom and I feel so bad. I want to apologize to them, but then again that would RCCUM. Lol. Also, when she is in public she'll randomly stare at people and be like, "Does she know a hairbrush?" or some other comment like that. It's extremely embarrassing and I want to hide under a rock whenever she does it. I've started telling her to stop, but then she gets upset with me. Like, what, they can't hear me? But I clearly saw them look at you when you said it. Ugh. Any advice? My mom will do the random commenting thing you mentioned, like did they look in the mirror before they left the house, or she really should have bought a bigger size. I've learned she quickly shuts up if you kill em with kindness. So I say something I like about whoever she's just pointed out. I've noticed she says less negative things nowadays. Well, my mom is not that much of a Karen, but she is a homophobic and she also doesn't like the concept of any other gender more than female and male. I'm not really sure what she thinks about gay people or bisexual people because I haven't asked since she gets really angry and argues with me, so I'm not sure, but she says God made a woman and a man. Adam and Eve. No in between. No other option. No girls that act like boys or vice versa. I am not gay or bisexual or trans or any other LGBTQ+, but I just ask myself, what if I was? If I had a mother like that who made you feel bad about what gender you want to be and which gender you want to love, it would be hell to have a mother like that. I am so sorry for anyone who has a mother like mine and or LGBTQ+, and I don't know how to help. I hope someday your parents may have a change of mind, and I have my messages open if anyone wants to talk. Who is a Karen? I feel really stupid asking this, but I'm not a native English speaker and neither have I visited an English-speaking country. I often come by this word in Reddit, so I've tried looking it up in Google, but didn't find a satisfactory answer. I'm going crazy now. Please tell me the meaning. Someone less than begs greater than. Try Urban Dictionary, you'll get a good enough answer there. A Karen is basically a person who tends to exaggerate the smallest thing and will cause a scene. Be rude when things aren't to her standard. Having a lot of Black and Hispanic friends has to make me constantly tell her to mind her business. Not my parent, but my aunt once got up in an Applebee's and complained to the waitress that the wrestling on the TV was gross and inappropriate for my cousin to see. About 20 people were watching that TV right next to us. Her food was 90% salt when she got it. My mom will always want to see the manager for whatever slight thing. Once she waited in line at the service desk for something like half an hour because she thought she was overcharged a few cents for 2 bottles of dish liquid that was on sale. Then she gets up there to complain and she discovers that she was actually undercharged quite a bit. So she complained about not paying enough and the manager said he would have to write up the cashier for the undercharged, but she Corum CE Cromer UTLMUE Maya Air LT. She picked me up from the airport when I was coming back from a trip to apply to graduate school, and she accidentally parked in the overnight lot. When she went through the gate, the attendant said, $20 degree. She blew up and threw an unholy fit. The entire car was shaking. She was going to get them fired somehow. I was just trying not make eye contact as I was really embarrassed by this. I am bound for graduate school and my white trash mother is screaming at parking lot attendants because she parked in the wrong lot. The attendants finally just raised the gate and she gunned it out of the lot. And to this day she brings up this story as if it was a win. My mom represents the complete opposite of a Karen besides being named Karen. TBH, the stereotype gets a bit annoying because she really is a reasonable and understanding person. Love. Alt Law. 3 cookies help us deliver our services. By using our services or clicking I agree, you agree to our use of cookies. Learn more.